My upgrades are Invincible, Chapter 94c, Fan Fiction, by Azazyel. So I put a hand to my chest and spoke with total sincerity. Upon my very soul, my contract with my goddess, and my pride as a man, Shenhe. I will be available this weekend for a sparring match. Hell, I will come to the Hera Familia mansion to do it. As I need to do a checkup on Alfia and Materia as well. There was a pause as Shenhe stared into my eyes to judge my trustworthy levels, and then she nodded. All right. I will wait for you then. Shenhe then looked to Blake and noted calmly. Blake, you are a better reader and smut writer than a warrior. Then, without another word, Shenhe walked out of my apartment with Blake staring at me with embarrassment clear in her eyes, with an awkward silence surrounding us until Blake said quietly. Hephaestus gave us a key because you knocked up my mom. And Mom would rather play at being a housewife than an adventurer anymore. Taking a breath, I stepped forward closer to Blake, who swallowed as I advanced on her. And then I said bluntly. She will become stronger if she wants to have my child. Sure, I skipped a lot of romance and connection building with her, but I am taking responsibility for her. Blake, at hearing my words, had her lips twitch before I continued more calmly, and I said. Anyway, you still have your weapons and light armor from when we were fighting on the ship back in Melon, right? I am missing my armor. I wasn't wearing it when the attack came, and with our house on the beach. I wasn't going to go get changed into my armor when the monster was rushing up through the water towards the beach and the city. Blake explained. Which was more than fair enough. So I nodded and said firmly. Good, you will be coming into the dungeon with Tina, Tamamo, Callie, and I after this coming weekend. So I will just make you a new set of light armor before we leave, now. You are more cat beastkin than Amazon, right? I asked curiously. Blake's previously slightly embarrassed expression faded before she nodded and said curiously. Yeah, Amazon's always giving birth to females. But sometimes the partner's race can be more dominant, especially with further breeding of the bloodline with that race, so I am more cat beastkin than Amazon. Which made sense partly as Tsubaki was half-dwarf and Amazon. But it was clear that she was more Amazon than anything, even if she had a more stocky build than most Amazons did. Why ask? Blake added on. And with zero hesitation, I said bluntly. Baby, crazy Amazons. Blake's face darkened into a blush with her backhanding me across the arm with her hissing. I am not my mother, thank you very much. To which I raised an eyebrow and chuckled as I asked. What part of your mother's plan do you disagree with? The wrestling match to establish dominance, or the fact that she jumped me within a month of being around me? There was a pause as Blake seemingly actually considered the question with her blush fading. And then she answered honestly. Probably the wrestling match. Shrugging, I went and sat down on a new couch that I didn't previously have in my old apartment, and I asked somewhat relaxed. So what's your type of romance then? Callie's romance is a strong man proving their strength and then providing for her. What's yours? Blake gave me a long searching look before she smiled wryly and said. Something that fits too well with an Amazon, frankly. It's why I stick with my books. And speaking of my books, I am going back to reading. And with that, I watched as Blake walked into what was presumably her own room with her plush heart-shaped ass swaying as she left. Well. Today has been a productive day already. I muttered before I decided that now was a good time for me to search through my weapons, armor, and various treasures I had fused over time to mess around with. As it was clear that the main core of my fusion skill, beyond making strong weapons and such, was allowing me to make the weapons and treasures of other fictional worlds, so long as I could get materials that generally matched their being in order to make the object. Leviathan Axe Trial. Fuck that, I don't want to fight Kratos until I am level 10 Moonlit Greatsword. Maybe at some point. Killing the Greater will certainly be worth hitting a higher level. I muttered as I went over the weapons first. But then I realized that I was mostly fine in terms of weapons actually. Hell, my physical strength and other physical stats due to all the magical supplements and stuff I took also meant I was physically speaking at the top of my level even still. What I really needed was something simple. I needed magic to close the gap between me and the monsters of the Zeus Familia. I needed magic that wasn't fair, it wasn't clean, and its sole job was to kill all the shit. After a long while of thinking, going between the wands I made from the firebirds in the dungeon to the Ofuta seals I had fused from magic stone and fused ink, to even things like bootleg materia from Final Fantasy, I made by fusing elemental metals I got from Tsubaki's shop. But then I came to a realization, a sort of fucking irony that I couldn't ignore due to how wonderfully based it would be. Dragon magic from Elden Ring. What if I killed the Zeus Familia members that will inevitably come for me with draconic lightning spells? What irony would it be for another draconic attack to kill them when the black dragon is supposed to be the one who wipes them out? Not to mention just the draconic spells, but Elden Ring's magical system scaled very high once you moved away from game logic and took in the fact that I wouldn't be some up-jump tarnished. No, I would have far more mana than the tarnished. Holy spells for healing, poison, toxin, sleep, bleed, madness spells for debuffing, and a whole host of buffing spells, techniques, and of course pure offensive methods. I slowly nodded as though Dark Souls-style magic would be easier to get, probably. But they didn't scale as high or as evenly as the wide host of Elden Ring's system of magic. And honestly, I wanted to T-pose to establish dominance as hundreds of portals opened above my head like an eldritch gate of Babylon and shot countless high-speed meteors to devastate everything generally in front of me. There are 13 more chapters available on https://www.patreon.com/Azazyel, which you can access for $5 a month.